Welcome back to Secret Weapons. My name is Mark Johnston. If this is your first time here, this is a YouTube channel where we do gear demos and reviews, as well as studio tips and tricks, leveling up your writing, playing, and production from the perspective of a guitar player working out of a studio. If that's the kind of thing that would appeal to you, please hit that subscribe button and stick around for future videos. And today we are taking a look at the Silktone Expander. So Silktone Amplifiers is a fellow Northern California resident. I think I've said this in previous videos, but Silktone HQ is actually about 3 minutes from my studio right now. I met Charles over at Silktone right around the time that the Astra amplifier was released, meaning he had 2 amps on offer and no pedals yet. And it's been really cool to see both the growth of the amp wing of that company over the last couple of years and the really impressive run they have been on when it comes to their pedal line. Because the original Silktone Fuzz is a lot of people's favorite fuzz pedal. The Overdrive Plus was a phenomenal and musical overdrive pedal, and I think the Expander might be my favorite thing they've made so far. And that's because this thing can do a bunch of things really well, but it also does one thing better than almost anything I have played with before, and that is that this thing does make your clean tone bigger in a way that is hard to articulate, but kind of only makes sense when you plug in and listen to it. I think a great example of that is we did a lot of kind of clean tone stuff on that intro track, left and right clean guitars during that kind of verse section, single tracked each side. But that B section, that kind of big high energy rock chorus part, obviously with that Music Man Stingray, we leaned into pretty high gain tones for that, double tracked and wide and really distorted. But those Jazzmaster lead parts, they're actually not very dirty at all. I had this set with gain at 0. I wasn't even pushing into the amplifier all that hard. It was the Expander set as a really strong clean boost going into a chorus, going into my Benson. If you solo those guitars up in that track, there's not a lot of distortion happening, but there's a ton of harmonic content and there's a ton of body in those sounds that I don't think I would have been able to otherwise get if not for this pedal. I would have had to kind of do the thing that I would normally do, which is kind of go cleaner on the leads than on the rhythm parts, but still get into a reasonably high amount of overdrive, whether it's pushing the amp harder or clipping in a pedal, to get those lead guitar parts to feel as kind of matched to those high gain rhythm parts as they do in that track. And of course, from there, you can really push this thing up pretty aggressively. The gain control on this goes from those kind of clean, kind of always on sounds up through some really great preamp and overdrive sounds into some pretty spitty, crazy, fuzzy textures. But there's a couple interesting things going on when it comes to how you want to shape your tone here. You have volume and gain. This thing can get incredibly loud, but then you have a choke control and a little 3-position switch in between choke and gain. And what choke does is basically controls the amount of low end kind of pushing through this pedal. And then this 3-position toggle is going to have a middle position that is neutral, the kind of default EQ state of this pedal, wide, musical, very harmonically rich. And then to the left, you cut high end, and to the right you cut low end for kind of more focused, trebly angular stuff, or warmer, murkier, and if you take that choke up really high, hyper bass focused sounds. The reality is that when it comes to the control scheme on this pedal, it's incredibly simple, it's incredibly straightforward. But when you dig in, and that's why we're going to get to our sound samples fast, you hear how versatile and how rich and how interesting this pedal is. I'm somebody who's gone into the overdrive world a lot recently. Overdrives and distortions and pushing my amps really hard to get those rock sounds, because sometimes it's hard to get truly clean guitar sounds to stand up straight in a mix. And the Expander and its kind of harmonic content and everything is doing that in spades for me, not just in this video, but in a lot of the stuff I've been working on recently. So let's plug this thing back in and let's give the Expander a listen. So as always, before we get into our sound samples, let's talk to our signal chain and the context we're working in. I am playing my Fender 52 reissue Telecaster into the 29 pedals Una and then into the Silktone Expander. We're running into our amplifier, which is the Benson Monarch Plus, mic'd up with a AEA N22 ribbon microphone, running into a Soyuz Lakeside preamp. This is what our clean tone sounds like. So rather than going through the usual kind of game of picking each parameter or control and going min to max, I instead want to showcase the expander at kind of its three main positions. One being as a always on clean tone shaper, one as a kind of preamp overdrive circuit, and then one as the kind of high gain thing. So we're going to make use of all the controls in each kind of tonal focus range. But rather than doing the control by control thing, I actually think it'll be more interesting and more useful and hopefully a bit more considerate of everyone's time if we kind of clump it into these kind of standout sounds that the expander has. Because let's start with the clean tone range, because the cleans in this thing are phenomenal. As you can hear, there is a ton of tonal range here, and we have barely broken above 0 on the gain control, just using volume to kind of push and reduce kind of frequency overload. Let's go ahead and push up into kind of overdrive range, pushing that gain controller closer to noon. And let's go ahead and push this thing up into really crazy territory because we're still in kind of preamp overdrive space. You heard just by changing the amount of volume output that we were able to kind of change the character of that overdrive pretty heavily. So let's go ahead and make it so that this thing is doing a lot of the pushing internally by cranking that gain control.
you.